Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Lauren Cooper, and I'm the lead of the Forest, Carbon, and Climate program at Michigan State University. We're so pleased to announce the 2018-2019 Learning Exchange Series for the Forest Climate Working Group. And for those outside of the Forest Climate Working Group, I would just like to quickly provide a description of the group. This is a diverse group of forest interests, including landowners, industry, actors, conservationists, academia, and those active with carbon markets. The group has worked together for almost 10 years to advocate for state and federal policies that work to ensure sustainable forest use and prevention of land use change. We have currently been in the process of reinvigorating our focus and activities, and we welcome inquiries into our work, particularly if you think your organization may be interested in joining. And please reach out directly to me, and we have also our program here at Michigan State University, our email address if you'd like to correspond, or if you have any questions, we can certainly direct you to the right people. And so for this webinar, we're really pleased to kick off the full series for the 2018-2019 year. We have a great series of speakers, as you can see from our poster here, which is we're just releasing today. We have a wide range of disciplines and organizations, but all around the topics related to climate and carbon with our forests. These webinars, if you're new to this, will happen on the first Wednesday of every month. In the case of some months, however, if we landed too close to a holiday, it will be on the following week. And we do start and end right on the hour, and we will likely wrap up a little bit early today. If you head over to our website at the Forest, Carbon, and Climate program at Michigan State University, if you just Google that, you can find the full list of webinars, including individual registration links. So if you're really interested in a certain topic and you want to make sure it's on your calendar, head right on over and you can sign up. You can also register for them all right away and get your calendar all set up in advance. If you received an announcement or an email from either the Forest Climate Working Group or the Forest, Carbon, and Climate program here at Michigan State, then you're already on our list, so you can rest assured you'll get announcements for upcoming webinars. But it's always a good idea to get started with registration so you have it on your calendar. So to look a little more closely today, we have Rebecca Turner from American Forests, and she'll be giving us a presentation on state leadership on forests for climate. And then at the end of the series, or at the end of her talk, we'll go over the series in a little more detail. But for now, we'll be ready to hand it over to Becky for a little bit more on Becky. She's, if you're familiar with the Forest Climate Working Group, you'll know Becky as a force behind the growing momentum around forests and climate. She's been with American Forests for 8 years and is now the Vice President and Chief of Staff for the organization. Many of you also know Jad Daley, who she works with very closely, and he is also a contributor to their presentation today. And we're really excited to let Becky get started, but I just want to share a few details. This session is being recorded and will be posted to the web following the close. It probably will take a couple of days. And if you've registered, you'll receive an email letting you know when it's up. So if you're interested, you can review it later on and share it. We also want to broadly encourage you to share or share any of the webinars to any other folks that you think may be interested. This is definitely open to people from any organization, so you're welcome to spread the word. Today, we will have a Q&A following the presentation, so we'd like to hold questions until the end. But we will collect questions throughout the presentation in the chat interface. So if you're new to Zoom, sometimes your options, your bar with actions can disappear on you. So if you lose your bar, just move your mouse around either the top or bottom of the screen, and your action bar will pop back up in Zoom, and you'll see there's a chat button there, and you're welcome to submit questions by chat. If you've phoned in, you can email questions directly to forestc@msu.edu, and we'll be able to take your questions from there. And we don't expect to run out of time today, but if we do run out of time, we just have the speakers address questions that were outstanding into a document, and we post that alongside the presentation materials. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Becky, and we'll talk a little bit more about the series when she's done. So Becky, will you please share your screen?
Great, thank you, Lauren. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear.
Great. Great. Well, thank you, Lauren, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Jad Daley was originally slated to present this afternoon, but being the engaging speaker that he is hopping around the country this month, addressing numerous partners' annual meetings. I will do my best to fill his shoes. Today, I will be providing snapshots of states taking the lead on investing in their forests as part of their efforts to reduce carbon emissions and helping them adapt to the effects of climate change, or as Jad says, carbon offense and carbon defense. As you may have noticed, forests are being recognized more and more on the global stage for the climate solutions that they are. And I'm having issues with my own. Great. At the Global Climate Action Summit in San Francisco last month, forests took center stage. Throughout the summit, forests were highlighted as key to reducing climate change. The IPCC report proclaims that unless there is a breakthrough in technology, forests are the only proven way to remove carbon from the atmosphere on a large scale. At prior international climate change gatherings, forests were a side note. Even in the Paris Agreement, forests were not hailed the way that they have been in just the last 2 months. Of course, this is something we've known for years, and folks are finally taking notice. Once the US pulled out of the Paris Agreement, a coalition of states emerged, dedicated to meeting the Paris Agreement goals of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Now 17 states and territories strong, the US Climate Alliance has put forth the National Working Land Challenge that sets the goal of collectively being a net carbon sink. The natural working lands includes forests, agriculture, wetlands. To achieve this goal, the US Alliance states commit to improve inventory methods for land-based carbon flux, identify best practices to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and increase resilient carbon sequestration, advance programs, policies, and incentives to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and enhance resilient carbon sequestration. Undertake actions that will support a collective alliance-wide goal to maintain natural working lands as a net sink of carbon and protect and increase carbon storage capacity while balancing near and long-term sequestration objectives. And integrate priority action and pathways into state greenhouse gas mitigation plans by 2020. Given the stretched resources and capacity of the state agencies, the US Climate Alliance asked the Forest Climate Working Group to provide our expertise and technical assistance to help the states reach these goals. We held a 3-day learning lab workshop in DC in July. It's always the best time of the year to be in DC after August. All 16 states sent delegations. Puerto Rico was unable to attend. And we provided more than 60 world-class experts to help the states walk through the self-guided curriculum, reviewing the opportunity assessment provided by the Nature Conservancy and the World Resources Institute. This opportunity assessment identified the carbon sequestration potential through different pathways in forestry and agriculture. Many of the state delegations included private landowners, and our Forest Climate Working Group members were there to provide insight into the perspectives of the landowners. Our policy experts were on hand as the states identified what programs and policies already in existence that could be tweaked to include carbon sequestration as an objective. And our experts helped with identifying the potential new programs needed. Key to execution of these plans is the ability to leverage funding mechanisms from federal to state to private sector. The Forest Climate Working Group members in attendance provided key insight into the variety of funding that could be available to the states. States have taken the work they did in the learning labs and in the 3 months since have taken big steps in reaching their goal. I'll be writing just a snapshot of some of these public efforts. We do know that many of the other states are working internally and are moving forward as well. While I'm providing these brief snapshots, I am sure there are folks who are participating today from those states who may have even more insight, and we welcome you all to share those insights into what your states are doing during the question and answer period of this presentation. So while in some cases the states are moving ahead on a number of initiatives, it was the work in the learning labs and the advice our experts provided that accelerated these efforts. Hawaii. Just a few weeks before the learning lab, Hawaii passed legislation that set the goal to be a carbon neutral by 2045. It is the most ambitious plan of any state, and it included a 3-bill package. One of those bills was the creation of a carbon offset program, which aims to restore native forests through reforestation. It was at the Learning Lab where the Hawaii delegation was able to provide more nuance to enhance the offset program and discovered other private financing opportunities to achieve their reforestation goals. Hawaii is eager to host a state-level learning lab to really dig into their programs and policies and how to achieve their carbon neutral goal by 2045. Minnesota. While Minnesota was excited to be at the Learning Lab because they realized that their ag department and their forestry department should really be talking more often, they were able to take a deeper look since the Learning Lab at their state forests and state parks. They found opportunities to accelerate reforestation on those state lands, and they too are exploring financing from public and private sectors. Washington. The Learning Labs connected the state actors to the state landowners to build consensus around their reforestation goals. Language that was developed at the Learning Lab is being used in the ballot initiative 1631, instituting a state carbon fee. 1631 includes a 25% of the total expenditures under this act must be used for clean water and healthy forest investments to increase the resiliency of the state's waters and forests to the impacts of climate change. The healthy forest investments must be used for projects and activities that will increase resiliency to wildfire in the face of increased temperature and drought, or improve forest health and reduce vulnerabilities to changes in hydrology, insect infestation, and other impacts of climate change. These projects may consider supporting cross-laminated timber and other mass timber technologies in support of this work. Washington has been interested in a carbon tax or carbon fee initiative for quite some time before the Learning Lab, but it was our efforts that connected the private landowners to the state actors in a way that they hadn't been able to connect before. Rhode Island. Through the opportunity assessment done in preparation of the Learning Lab, it highlighted the role that urban forests can play in reducing carbon emissions for Rhode Island. Rhode Island is looking at a small land base and a few forests. However, their urban forest canopy can be expanded in a way that will help them meet their net carbon neutrality. So Rhode Island, because of their work in the Learning Lab and the access they had to our urban forest experts, Rhode Island is taking steps for a statewide urban forest canopy plan. They're exploring interesting financing opportunities as well. The Learning Lab in July was the first step. We'll be working with the U.S. Climate Alliance and its states to help achieve their goal. We are refining our tools, the tools that we provided at the Learning Lab, which included the opportunity assessment done by WRI and TNC. States have been requesting a more fine-tuned assessment for at the smaller scale of the state and asking for specific requests for different pathways. The state policy toolkit that we redrafted, thanks to the Trust for Public Land and others, is now in final form. It's available on our website and in hard copy. The Trust for Public Land and American Forest was working on a carbon map tool, which identifies ownership types for individual parcels. The states can go into their forested landscape and have a clear understanding of who owns the land and can apply which policies and programs that will help those landowners achieve the goals. The Northern Institute for Applied Climate Science has produced a forest carbon menu that helps identify even more specific practices to the pathways of opportunity assessment. And this will be published soon. The Forest Climate Working Group will be providing continued national support at national level learning labs that will bring together multiple states working on a similar pathway, one of the more complex forest pathways that states are having problems. The states are having additional problems across borders. We'll also be holding state and regional learning lab workshops. A key goal of the Forest Climate Working Group is to be available to help across sectors and across governments find the solutions to climate change through enhanced forest practices, conservation, restoration, and this is now happening in a way it hasn't done before. More to come on our Forest Climate Working Group efforts with the U.S. Climate Alliance, and more to come on how the states are taking the work that they did in the Learning Lab and applying them to their own agencies and programs. Thank you all, and I look forward to a hearty dialogue and questions on these few examples.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. This was a really nice overview. It certainly, I was at the Climate Alliance, and I'm sure a number of folks on this call were at the Climate Alliance meeting this summer, and it was certainly a lot of energy in the room, a lot of really interested and interesting folks there that are all kind of coming together on these topics. On a technical point, I would love to hear from some folks that are on the call, but I'm wondering if Lauren Lucas, my program assistant, can chime in and give me some advice on if folks would like to speak, because I think there are some state people here. How can we allow them to do that? Because the webinar setting is limited.
Yeah, so if there's anybody specific that wants to reach out in the chat box, I can go ahead and use a setting called allow to talk for that person and give them the floor if they'd like to speak.
Okay. And I know that I had kind of I already received an overarching question that, Becky, I can float to you if there's somebody that's still thinking that they'd like to contribute. One question was, is there a way for states that are outside of the Alliance to learn about what states inside of the Alliance are doing? Like, is that information being organized somewhere? And then another question was, if people are talking to folks within their state, who should they point them to? Like, for example, I'm in Michigan here, and where Michigan was not represented at the meeting there and is not a member of the Climate Alliance. If there are folks in these states that that are not involved, but they may be interested, what's the best way to highlight the Climate Alliance and the work that's happening there? So if you could start with those questions, and we'll see if we can maybe get some input from somebody else, maybe from the states or from the Climate Alliance meeting would also be great.
Absolutely. One of the key interests of the NGOs that are working together to help the Climate Alliance is to work with states who are not in the Alliance but are interested in knowing what's going on. One of the clear ways is we'll be working with the Alliance on their website as well as the Forest Climate Working Group website to share when there are open dialogues and open invitations. One to the national level learning labs. We're interested in providing an opportunity for non-state, non-Climate Alliance state folks to attend. There will be reports coming out from the Learning Lab and from these states. Of course, the states are very interested in not getting too far ahead of themselves, or the governors in particular. And so while some of these things are internal, you're definitely seeing the results that are more external. The U.S. Climate Alliance is always interested in having more states become involved. One way for folks to reach out to their state foresters who have been introduced to the U.S. Climate Alliance through Jad Daley, one of the many speaking engagements that he's had this month. And those state foresters will be able to tap you into the right networks. You can also reach out to me, Art Turner at AmericanForest.org, and Jad Daley, Jdaley at AmericanForests.org, as we are working very closely with the Alliance in their efforts, as well as with the other NGOs. So we can definitely tie folks together that way.
Thank you so much. Another question that we have here is, you mentioned going more deeply at the state level, after having the multi-state meeting. Could you talk a little bit more about what the type of support states would have or could expect going forward from the Climate Alliance as they kind of dig deeper into their own data and their own planning efforts?
Absolutely. There was a core group of NGOs, Forest Climate Working Group, being one, American Forests, the Nature Conservancy, World Resources Institute, Trust for Public Land, the American Farmland Trust, and the Coalition for Agriculture Greenhouse Gases. All of these organizations have an MOU with the U.S. Climate Alliance to continue to provide the expert advice that we provided during the Learning Lab. So TNC and WRI are working with Climate Alliance states with their opportunity assessments to answer specific questions, to go more deeply into a specific pathway, and using some of the state provided data to dig deeper in with those models. We're also looking at state and regional work, workshops. And these NGOs will be working with the Alliance to set those up, provide the experts, many who are on the Forest Climate Working Group, but also working with those states and getting the state stakeholders engaged. So we are always interested in hearing what these states need. Some of it came through the survey that was provided, that the U.S. Climate Alliance provided. There's also bi-monthly calls that the Climate Alliance holds where states are updating each other on their progress. Again, if you are a Climate Alliance state and you are interested in more assistance, please contact me at rturner@americanforests.org, and I can connect you with the right people to make sure that your efforts are moving forward and you are given the guidance that you need.
Thanks so much, Becky. It's a lot of great work, and we're looking forward to seeing the next stage as the states progress. And a sort of transition here is I was a facilitator at that meeting and worked with New Jersey, who's one of our speakers that we have in the rest of our lineup. So if you're also coming from a state and you anticipate having some information to share further down the line, please reach out to me. We'd be happy to include you in our planning going forward. So it'd be great to connect with you on that, even if we're planning a ways out. So if you have nothing to share right away, that's perfectly fine. We'd love to get you in a lineup sometime next year. So if we're closing with this section, if we're all set, Lauren, would you mind flipping to the last slide? And we just wanted to talk a little bit more about the lineup going forward. Rebecca, thank you again for your presentation. It was really helpful to have a nice kind of high-level overview on what's happening within states here. And we're seeing a lot of really exciting momentum at that level. And certainly both in person and remotely. So it's nice to get the overview, and I look forward to getting more details. Going forward, we are also going to have our next webinar on November 7th with some folks from the Trust for Public Land. Brees Robertson, who I saw is on this call, Fred Gifford, Emily Dolphy. They're going to be talking about using big data to inform land conservation and park development that address climate change. On December 5th, we'll have a practitioner's menu of climate adaptation strategies and approaches to forest carbon management with Todd Ontel of NIAX, which is the Northern Institute of Applied Climate Science. This is in line with a tool that we used at the Climate Alliance workshop, and is also going to be a peer-reviewed article coming out. And it's a really great overview of nuts and bolts approaches and strategies, very practical that can be used on the ground when considering forest carbon. So we're really looking forward to that overview. We'll also have Forest Carbon Offsets, a viable opportunity for landowners, with Dylan Jenkins of Finite Carbon on January 9th. And then on February 6th, excuse me, we're going to shift to looking at harvested wood products a bit. So getting forest management and land use carbon accounting right for harvested wood products. That'll be with George Berghorn and Elaine O'Neill from MSU and Quorum, respectively. Then on March 6th, we'll move into climate action in coal country with the Nature Conservancy. This is going to be with some expert input from Campbell Moore and Beth Wheatley. And on April 3rd, we'll shift to some contributions from Forest Trends with Kelly Hamrick and Stephen D'Onofrio from Ecosystem Marketplace. And they'll be talking about forest carbon markets, an overview and its potential. On May 1st, we'll transition to the Family Forest Carbon Initiative with Rita Height of AFF and Josh Parrish of TNC. And then on June 5th, as I mentioned, we'll have a contribution from New Jersey, and we'll hear a talk from Michael Catania of Duke Farms and the state of New Jersey. And he'll be talking about natural climate solutions in New Jersey, rejoining RGGI, which is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and a case study of Duke Farms. And then finally for the year, we'll wrap up on July 10th with carbon market opportunities and project development tools for forest owners. And this will be with Climate Action Reserve's Sarah Westcott. And Climate Action Reserve is one of the key standards that are used in the California market. So wanting to thank all of our speakers in advance for offering up their time. And again, you can head over to our website, which you can see here. You can just Google our program name, might be easiest, but we're at canr.msu.edu/FCCP, and you can sign up for any of these webinars right now. And keep your eye out for an announcement on this. You can also email forestc@msu.edu, which you can also see on this flyer if you'd like to get on our email list, and we'll certainly be happy to send along this information to you and make sure that you know when these are coming up. And so if that's it, I think we're going to wrap up a bit early today. I just want to thank Becky again for this nice overview, and to Jad for his contributions and his hard work in this topic area. And thank you everyone for joining us. We're looking forward to a strong year of these knowledge exchanges, and please reach out to me directly if you have any feedback or further ideas. So thanks again, and have a great afternoon. Thanks, Becky.